Hello to you all. Unfortunately, today I'm having a bit of a technical issue. Unfortunately, my camera keeps on freezing, which is really, really annoying. It's working, but for some reason, when I try streaming it, it's not. Keeps on freezing. Again, technical issue. Hopefully, we'll solve it soon. Um, but needless to say, it definitely looked like for quite a while that Johnson had survived Partygate. It really, really did. It looked like he had survived and that he was home free. That the MPs and his loyalist supporters in the party were going to give him now a free pass. Because, as we've said before, the only reason that Johnson is staying where he is currently is because he has that election magic. He can get them that big majority. And just as we saw again with the Republican Party in Thor to Trump, they allowed him to stay because he could win them, as they suspected and hoped, a big majority. And of course, now with Johnson's approval rating absolutely tanking, we are talking falling literally from the heights of Everest right down, straight down to the bottom, and so far shows no sign of stopping. So this now has a lot of his own loyalist worries. But there are also still concerns for the ones that want to get rid of Johnson, because they now have to ask the question, are there enough of us that seriously want to get rid of him? Or are there still enough loyalists out there that just want to keep Johnson in charge, again, because of his little election magic that he's got going on, keep him in place? That at the moment is the main sum game. Now, we still don't know if there are going to be letters because, again, Johnson's had a hell of a weekend with at least up to 5 ministerial aides leaving in what's been called the big reshuffle, with someone even called Steve, one of the, like a former guy now brought in, he was an MP who's basically saying, well, why have you brought an MP in to do this? That doesn't make sense. Again, that's another story, but the likelihood here is that we've got now a loyalist saying that his removal is now inevitable. So this is definitely something to watch this week. So maybe I had declared Boris Watch coming to an end a bit too prematurely, but needless to say, this week could prove maybe quite interesting for Johnson. So let's go diving into this. Please do remember, of course, to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do support the channel that way. So, this story today comes from The Guardian with the title of Partygate. Johnson's removal is now inevitable, warns loyalist. Boris Johnson's desperate efforts to try and save his premiership were undermined on Saturday as one of his most loyal backbench supporters said that it was now inevitable that Tory MPs would remove him from office over the Partygate scandal. In an interview with The Observer, Sir Charles Walker, the former vice chairman of the 1922 Committee of Backbench Conservative MPs, implored the Prime Minister to go with his own accord in the national interest and liken the events in the Tory party to a Greek tragedy. It is an inevitable tragedy, Walker said. He's a student of Greek and Roman tragedy. It is not going to end. Is not going to end in him going. So I just want to have him at least have some agency in that. Walker, who announced at the very start of the month that he was stepping down as an MP, and said that in his view, Johnson had got many things right, including the handling of the vaccine rollout, and deserved to be remembered for them rather than suffering the indignity of losing a leadership challenge. But he said that the succession of parties in Downing Street during the national lockdown had focused the anger of a very traumatized country on Number 10 in a way that he could only be feeling addressed if the Prime Minister moved aside. It is not just going to get better, he said. On Saturday night, Johnson moved to try and shore up his operation in Number 10, which was rocked by, again, the resignations of 5 of his key aides last week, by the appointment of the new Duchy of Lancaster, Sir Steve Barclay, as his chief of staff, and Guru Tuhari, who worked for him when Johnson was mayor of London, as his director of communications. The appointment of an MP to be Chief of Staff is again highly unusual and suggests that Johnson may have even faced problems in recruiting an outsider for the role at the time when Whitehall was in doubt over how much he will actually last in number 10. Harry's appointment is also a surprising one since he has strongly criticized Johnson in recent years, including saying in 2018 that it would be hugely divisive as Prime Minister. The Labour Deputy Leader Angela Rayner said, Boris Johnson is panicking as he is frequently rearranging his deck chairs. The Prime Minister is clearly running out of serious people willing to serve in his chaotic and incompetent staff leadership. So now he expects a cabinet minister to be his chief of staff. Walker is understood to have submitted a letter of no confidence in Johnson himself. But on Saturday night, Tory backbenchers who have been trying to crunch the numbers said that the thoughts of those wanting to ditch Johnson were only about 10 or at least maybe 20 short of the 54 letters that needed to be submitted to the chair of the 1922 committee, Sir Graham Bradley. So again, that's quite interesting that they think they are nearly there. They think there's literally only 10, maybe 20 more letters to go. Very, very interesting. So who knows what could happen this week? Again, like I say, when you crunch those numbers. But of course, some Conservative MPs said that they believed to be about 40 to 45 letters were either in or pending, while another estimated that there was a circulating suggesting the number was far closer to its early 30s. The Observer understand that several MPs who have not yet gone public are likely to put their letters in early this week, before MPs go for their 10-day recess on Thursday. The recess would be a time for the Prime Minister to try and regroup, so that there is an incentive to try and get in the names before then, said one Tory source. The Tory MB from Wimbledon and former Chief Minister Stephen Hammond said that he was considering very carefully this weekend whether he still had the confidence in the Prime Minister and addressed that it certainly looks like the beginning of the end for Johnson. If and when Bradley receives those 54 letters, he would then consult the Prime Minister on the vote of no confidence among all Tory MPs should take place. If Johnson failed to win a majority, he would have to step down. The mood has turned further against Johnson in recent days after he criticised Keir Starmer in the Commons on Monday for failing to prosecute the child abuser Jimmy Savile during his time as Director of Public Prosecutions. This is a baseless attack on the leader of the opposition and has led to the resignation of Johnson's longtime aide and even head of policy at number 10, Marina Mars, who has again who has demanded, shall we say, that Johnson apologise, which he has failed to do so. The investigations by the Observer have shown the unfounded claims about Starmer were being promoted before Johnson even aired them by far-right groups, including the UK branch of the Proud Boys, a virulent white nationalist organisation labelled as a terrorist entity. After Johnson made those comments in the Commons, other far notorious groups, including football hooligans linked to the anti-Muslim English Defence League and, of course, the nationalist organisation Traditional Britain Group, also landed in. The allegations also appears to have roots in the far-right's obsession with the unfounded suggestion that the establishment is protecting paedophiles. On Saturday, of course, the Culture Secretary Nadine Dorries repeatedly sought to blame Remainers for plotting against the Prime Minister during a round of media interviews. However, of the 15 Tory MPs who have so far called on Johnson to go, just 7 of those actually backed remaining in the EU in the 2016 referendum. And among the leavers who have said that Johnson should go are David Davis, Andrew Brigden, and most recently the former Education Minister Nick Gibb. Dorries told the Radio Times there are a small number of voices, and whether they are people who are ardent supporters of Remain. We see who is at their last opportunity to reverse Brexit. Hammond, a Remainer, described Dorris's remarks as predictable, rubbish, and from a predictable source. In a further blow to the Prime Minister, his actions during the Partygate scandal have even been blamed by scientists for a sharp decline in the number of people getting a vaccine booster. The number of people being boosted dropped below 30,000 a day last week, with only 64.6% of the UK population over 12-year-olds now receiving a third dose of booster so far. Behavioural scientist has said that declining trust in the Prime Minister, as well as belief that Omicron is mild, is minimized despite its impact. were all behind in the fall of vaccine take-up. So, as you can see here, Johnson, that pressure has continued to mount on Johnson, absolutely continued to mount on him. And we have to see how this goes this week. There's some very obviously interesting numbers in there about MPs crunching the numbers, thinking how close are they to those number of letters coming in. And it's not just that. It's not just those letters coming in. Once it goes to a vote of no confidence, the vote of no confidence, as I said before, is a closed vote. So you do not know which way people have voted. And those people that want to remove Johnson, it's not just about getting them those letters in, it's also about that vote that comes after. And there might be those many people who, even again, if they can go, well, we can get Johnson to go, we can put in these letters, but we might lose the vote because there are still obviously people in the Tory party that are those MPs that support Johnson, not for anything because they're like Johnsonites or think that, again, he's doing a good job. It's because they recognize and can see that election magic that Johnson managed to pull at the last election and basically think that they can remain in power so long as Johnson, again, maintains that magic. But we've already seen that this Partygate has not only damaged Johnson, but is now starting to damage the Tories themselves. And this is now, I think, what is pushing more and more of them to act. We've also seen Johnson throwing those accusations at Starmer, which have even damaged his reputation even more as a prime minister and has outraged a lot of those Tory MPs. So this is just going to, I think, progressively just get worse and worse for him. And we will have to see what happens on Monday. I think if there are more letters to come, I think that it will be the Tory MPs, deciding, do I want to put my letter in? And of course, after that comes the vote. And I think there is still much tribulations from and a hesitation, shall we say, from many of those people who do want Johnson to go to think, well, how many people actually want him to stay? How close might we be in that vote of no confidence? And that is the big worry here. Johnson has already said, if there's one comes, I'm going to fight it. I'm not leaving. Johnson already knows throughout all this would have toppled any other prime minister. It doesn't matter who they were. And I've said this before, Johnson has survived scandals and stuff had happened to him that have basically, toppled careers of far more competent politicians than him. So he just knows that he just has to stay there. He just wants to be prime minister. He just wants the glory of being it. But at what cost? And I think many of the Tories, hopefully this weekend, are going to start and wake up to the to really smell the coffee in a way that Johnson is just not good. He's just not a good prime minister. He was not the man who was sold to them as being this absolute genius of being put in place. And I think that's the thing that now the Conservative MPs really have to consider and think about and have to seriously ask themselves the question, is it worth keeping him? So with that said, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit the like, share, and subscribe button on your way out. And of course, thank you once again to all those people who do support the channel with the Patreon page, again, down below. And of course, the one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, and of course, the YouTube memberships as well. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.